You want me to test? Welcome to City Connection. It's Monday, April 6, 2026, and I am your host, Allison Donahue. Cool. To City Connection, it's Monday, April 6, 2026, and I'm your host, Allison Donahue. Brought to you by the Grand Rapids Community Media Center, this live program connects you directly with our city officials, giving you the chance to hear the latest local news and ask questions about the issues that matter most to you. Joining us later on the show today is 2nd Ward Commissioner Melinda Isasi, but first, let's go over some of the latest updates from around Grand Rapids. The City of Grand Rapids is launching a new pilot route for its free downtown area shuttle, better known as the Dash, starting May 4. The updated route will run every 8 minutes, nearly twice as often as the current 15-minute service, and will be simplified back to a one-direction loop. City officials say the changes are aimed at long-term cost sustainability, as the city faces a projected 28% increase in operating costs under its current agreement with the Rapid. The redesigned route focuses on a smaller downtown footprint, helping the city avoid more than $7 million in future costs, while targeting about $2 million annually. The free shuttle, which will continue to run 7 days a week, connects downtown destinations including DeVos Place, Van Andel Arena, Acrisure Amphitheater, city parking ramps, and the future Amway Soccer Stadium. The one-year pilot still requires final approval from the City Commission and is subject to budget authorization. Mobile GR will conduct community engagement throughout the summer and fall to discuss the pilot's performance and explore the best long-term investment in downtown transit. Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker announced Thursday that no criminal charges will be filed in the fatal shooting of Daquan Johnson, a 32-year-old black man who was shot following a police chase on February 18. He later died from those injuries. Police say Johnson pointed a gun at the officer, but Johnson's family and advocates dispute that account. Their attorneys point to bystander video that shows Johnson face down and being restrained by officers and a police canine at the time that he was shot. The decision follows an investigation by Michigan State Police and brings the criminal review process to a close. City officials, including Mayor David LeGrand and City Manager Mark Washington, acknowledged the decision while also recognizing the pain and grief felt by members of the community. LeGrand said he will continue to elevate our policies and practices to ensure the safety of all. Washington says internal reviews by the Grand Rapids Police Department and the Office of Oversight and Public Accountability will now move forward. The city has also partnered with the Wisdom Center to offer free counseling services throughout April for residents seeking support. The City Commission unanimously selected Philip Strom to serve as the next city attorney. Strom has served as interim city attorney since September of 2025, when former city attorney Anita Hitchcock retired. Prior to filling that position, Strom served 6 years as deputy city attorney, including oversight of 3 legal divisions, coordination of FOIA operations, and management of major initiatives involving litigation, labor relations, citywide policy, and emergency operations. The Commission's unanimous vote follows a public engagement process that included community-submitted questions, a public forum, finalist interviews, and open deliberations. 10 candidates are moving forward in the process to fill Grand Rapids' vacant First Ward City Commission seat, according to City Clerk Joel Hondorp. Among them is Kurt Reppert, who previously served as First Ward Commissioner before being narrowly defeated in 2022. The applicants will be interviewed by the City Commission's Committee on Appointments at 9 a.m. on April 17. Finalists will then move on to a special City Commission meeting on April 22, where a new commissioner could be selected. Both meetings are open to the public at City Hall and will also be live streamed on the city's Facebook page and YouTube channel. As warmer weather returns, the Grand Rapids Fire Department is reminding residents that a permit is required for wood-burning recreational fires on private property. Officials say they've received several recent complaints about unpermitted fires. Permits cost $60 and are valid for 1 year with a $10 renewal fee. Fires must follow strict safety rules, including distance requirements from buildings and having an extinguisher on hand. Only clean, dry firewood is allowed. Burning leaves, trash, or yard waste is prohibited. Residents can apply online, and nearby neighbors will be notified before approval. Applications are now open for Grand Rapids' Grow 1000 Summer Youth Employment Program. Teens and young adults ages 15 to 24 can apply through May 8 to earn $15 an hour, which is a $2 increase from last year, while gaining workplace experience. Participants will work 20 hours a week for 6 weeks through from June 8 through July 17, and will also take part in paid job shadowing and professional development workshops. The program is managed by Our Community's Children, a partnership between the city, Grand Rapids Public Schools, and local organizations. Businesses and nonprofits can also sign up to host youth workers or support the program financially. More information can be found on the city website. In more summer news, registration is now open for free summer day camps through Grand Rapids Parks and Recreation. The camps are open to kids ages 6 to 12 and will be held at Garfield Park, MLK Park, and Roosevelt Park. Programs run weekdays across 3 sessions from mid-June through mid-August. Camp hours vary slightly by location, with most running in the afternoon. Free lunch and snacks are provided, and camps include outdoor activities, arts and crafts, games, and field trips. The camps are free for city residents with a fee for non-residents. Parents can only sign their children up for one camp location and must register their children for each session individually. The city is also hiring camp counselors with positions starting at $16.50 an hour for applicants ages 14 and up. More information is available on the city's website. A major milestone has been reached for the Grand River Revitalization Project. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service has approved more than $11 million in federal funding to support the effort. With that approval, all major permits and funding are now in place, allowing construction to move forward, according to the city. The project aims to restore the river's natural rapids, improve habitat, and remove 4 dams to increase safety and access. The City Commission recently approved a $14.5 million construction contract with Taplin Group, LLC, for the first phase, which stretches from I-196 to Fulton Street. Construction is expected to begin soon and take about 2 years. The City of Grand Rapids is investing $40,000 to support 14 resident-led projects through its Neighborhood Match Fund. The program backs community-driven ideas that aim to strengthen neighborhood connections and foster a greater sense of belonging. This year's projects include a youth coding accelerator, water safety education, a Juneteenth celebration, community dinners, an art crawl, and back to school support for local students, among many other things. You can read about all the awardees on the city's website. All projects are led by Grand Rapids residents and were selected based on their potential impact, with a focus on inclusion, community engagement, and social connection. The city will accept proposals for the next round of Neighborhood Match Fund Awards later this summer from June 1 to 30 for projects scheduled from September through February. Registration is now open for the City of Grand Rapids 2026 Neighborhood Summit happening Saturday, April 25 at GRPS University. Now in its 12th year, the free all-day event brings together residents, community organizations, and city staff for a day focused on connection, collaboration, and community building. This year's theme is Stronger Together, with an emphasis on elevating community voice and strengthening relationships across neighborhoods. The event includes workshops, resource tables, meals, and free childcare with registration, and is expected to welcome up to 500 participants. More information and registration can be found online at publicinput.com/GR-Summit26. And lastly, the City of Grand Rapids is inviting residents to take part in its community survey, now open to the public through April 20. The National Community Survey was initially sent to randomly selected households, but an online version is now available for anyone who wants to participate. The survey asks about quality of life, city services, and experiences with local government, and takes about 15 minutes to complete. City officials say the results will help guide future planning and budgeting decisions and will be compared to past surveys from 2022 and 2024. That's it for city updates. When we come back from the break, we'll be joined by Second Ward Commissioner Melinda Isasi. Welcome back to City Connection. I'm your host, Allison Donahue, joined here by Commissioner Melinda Isasi. Welcome back to City Connection.
Thank you. Thanks, Allison.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah. How are things going in the Second Ward these days?
Things in the Second Ward are good. This is my second term, so this is my 7th year on commission. And in so many ways, there are a lot of the same things that come up, but then there's tons of new things. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest challenge right now that residents and businesses and everyone is feeling is just changing strategies and structures and policies at the federal government. And even though I want to tell people to have full faith in our local municipal government, really proud of our state government, it just feels overwhelming at times. So I would say that's kind of the sentiment I hear a lot from my constituents and just friends and neighbors.
Looking for support bigger than
absolutely
Grand Rapids level. Well, we went over a lot of news at the top. One big change that's going to be coming to City Commission soon is that you'll have a new face sitting up there on the dais with you. Can you tell us a little bit about that process so far?
Yes, absolutely. I will do that.
Let me help you.
Sure. Make sure everybody can hear me.
Thumbs up.
All right, thanks. So we'll talk, the first word process. So interestingly enough, I think this is the second time I've gone through an appointments process on commission. So
last year in the third, 2 years ago?
2 years ago in the third ward. So I wear a hat that says deja vu a lot. But so I am on the committee appointments. Commissioner Kilgore is the chair. And a few weeks ago, once we knew that Commissioner Robbins was going to be resigning, we had the opportunity. What the charter says is the position needs to be filled. It doesn't say by when. It is obviously, I would say, it is the decision is that of the City Commission, but oftentimes the committee is used to do that. And so I would say I was really surprised, about the number of people who wanted to put their name in the hat. So first, thank you for those who wanted to do that. Deciding to run or to be appointed is something that's very serious. So I appreciate that people were paying attention and encouraging others. Some people I know, some people I don't. The committee decided that we would interview all 10 on Friday, April 17th, and that'll be in commission chambers. It'll be streamed, and people can come in. It's a public meeting. And because we have so many people, we'll probably have about 3 questions. So each commissioner, myself, Commissioner Belcheck, and Commissioner Kilgore we'll all probably have an opportunity to ask one question. We ask the same question of each colleague. And then at that point, we'll have some time for deliberation and probably narrow it down. In the past, we've narrowed it to a field of 3. I would say probably 3 or less is what I'd be looking to do, but I can't speak for the committee. Because then on the 22nd, the following Wednesday, the entire commission will do the interviewing process. And then, would really love to be able to appoint that person at that time, because then at the end of April, we'll get into our budget process, and you'd want to have somebody, sort of on deck to be able to go through that. So appreciate the interest, appreciate the questions that people will have, and now it sits in our hands to make that decision. So,
what are you personally looking forward to in a new commissioner?
Sure. Well, I've been very vocal about what I'd like to see. We've had a lot of changes over my last 7 years, and I think we need some continuity right now. And so Commissioner Repart is somebody who has put his name in the hat, who has indicated he is not going to be seeking to run for re-election. He would be eligible even under the charter, as has only serving 1 term. So I'm really looking for somebody who can come in and fill in the hole that we have right now. We have the mayor's in the 2nd year of the 1st term. Commissioner Belchak, Commissioner Kilgore are in their 2nd year of their 1st term. So to have somebody who could come in with a strong understanding of things like housing, public safety. Commissioner Repart was previously really involved with economic development, but has done so and been part of emerging developers. So in full disclosure, I said that on the dais, so I'm saying it again here. And I also will go through the process, but to me, this is a shortened amount of time, and it's something really finite with term limits. So, but I think, go ahead.
No, I just had a question about, so Repart served 1 term before, and he would still be eligible to run even after filling.
Right, because it talks about that ballot language is about being elected, not so it wouldn't take away from the appointment. So because that was a question too that was asked.
Yeah.
So, but I think I would say the folks that I know have good experiences. Those that I don't know that I've looked at have good experiences, and that's my own individual preference. I would say some of my colleagues have also indicated just the need to have a little bit of a stabilizing force, because we have had a significant amount of leadership changes on our committee. We've also had leadership changes, with our city attorney. We've had leadership changes with our police chief. That's not typical. That is typical when you get to these higher levels of leadership, where somebody wants to go on to the next thing, or they get highlighted and they get, recruited to somewhere else. In Ms. Hitchcock's place, that was really, somebody who is very clear to me, like, I'm going to be retiring. I don't know if I'm going to see you through to your 2nd term, Commissioner, but had really done a lot of work to set up the department. And I'm glad to see that now City Attorney Strom has appointed some folks internally to also serve in interim roles as he determines those next steps. So it just feels like a lot of change all at once.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm personally looking for. And I think, Commissioner Repart is somebody who has a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas that would be valuable.
Yeah, I imagine, especially being on that particular committee, just having to deal kind of with all of the turnover that happens.
Yeah.
But
I feel my job is to, I want to listen to my colleagues who maybe haven't been on commission as long as I have, because just length of time isn't the only thing that's valuable, and I always want to be clear about that. New ideas, fresh ideas are absolutely important. I just feel like I've been through this in one scenario, and so I think this is my best. A lot of times the work we do is consensus building, so it's some consensus building, and then the good people of the 1st Ward can select who will be their next 1st Ward commissioner. In the fall.
And he did say that Repart said he wasn't going to run again.
Yep. And we've really timed this so that it can follow along the lines of the filing deadlines that are required for running for office in the fall. And so that's something that we would look at on that Wednesday too, because I think you have to file by 5 p.m. the day before.
Okay.
So we'll foolproof it as well, because for me, his word might be enough, but I get it for other colleagues who might not know him, or for the community. So I'm glad that we were able to understand how that fits into the timetable as well.
So for folks that are watching and they want to have a say in who their new 1st Ward commissioner is, they've got to be tuned in by April 22, right? Like that is potentially the date that
that we would be
person's-
voting. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We've already started to receive emails for some candidates. Some candidates have reached out and wanting to talk to people. I think there's at least one person who's already filed to run who is put in for the appointment. I would also say, even if somebody didn't file for the appointment, they could still also decide to run in the fall too, because they have until April 22nd to decide that. They would just need to, get their petitions turned in, which is, it's some activity, but it's not impossible with a month to go.
Yeah, got to get out there and get your signatures.
Yep.
Another big thing that's on your plate these days, especially now that Kent County Commissioner, or Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker has said that the investigation is finalized at the state level, but now the city level has agreed to do their own investigation.
Yep. So this is really be at the county level, Kent County Prosecutor. So a reminder for everybody. Yeah, no, that's okay. A reminder, because there is a call for the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, to consider this and to decide to file charges. That was a call in the officer-involved shooting that resulted in the killing of Patrick Loyola back in 2022. And so I know that is something that is being requested of the family. At least that's what I've watched in the news. And that won't be for, that will be for the Attorney General's office to decide. I know there's been calls for additional autopsies to be done. What I can say, the criminal investigation has ended in terms of that shooting death and if there would be charges filed. What now is in front of us and is really under the purview of the city manager is the employment realities of individuals, which may or may not be taken up, policy considerations, and so there'll be a review done by both the internal affairs of GRPD as well as our Office of Public Oversight and Accountability, led by Brandon Davis, and a number of other people in that team. So that's what that will happen as well, where policies followed, and so that was really the criminal aspects, where there are criminal charges that needed to be filed. It was decided not. I would say, certainly I heard from a number of people, constituents, friends, other people just here in the Grand Rapids community, really anxious to see what that answer would be. We live in a world where there is a lot of video, there is a lot of considerations. The apartment facility had probably, from what I could tell, the best view, or one of the better views, I should say. I don't know, I can't definitively say it was the best, but a better view than probably what we saw. And so, I think there was this desire of well, why can't you release that? Well, again, that wasn't GRPD's video, that was the apartment complex's video. And so at some point we made the determination to put out the video. I think in these scenarios, it wasn't, certainly calls from community, but I would also say calls from different commissioners and also calls just internally of what we have done in the past and recognizing these are expectations of community, and that, what I heard, loud and clear from a number of residents is just, I don't want to see a member of my community, shot. And, why is this happening, or how is this happening? I'm not going to speculate, because that would be beyond what is appropriate for me to do at this time, and really probably any time. But I would say I look forward to that full administrative review. We'll certainly share that out. People ask timeline. I can't really give a timeline, but I would say I imagine typically it would be shorter than a criminal investigation, because the burden of proof and some of those things that need to happen are going to be in a different bucket, because it's not a matter of law, but it's a matter of a review of our policy. Yeah. So I can say that. And certainly people, I had to leave commission the other day due to bad virus, and so I wasn't able to hear from all the folks who came out. And there was a number of folks who were at commission last week at our commission night out who I know, were asking, again, release of video, release of name. In the past, I've shared, police officers, unlike myself in my course of my employment, they are unionized employees. They have a lot of protections in a unionized environment, as do other unionized civil servants. And so something that might seem the norm for myself or for you or anything else, there's even debates going on about what can be released. We're seeing this play out, in other institutions here in Grand Rapids, where there are employment considerations, employment changes. And so, in that moment, I know it doesn't feel good from people, but my role is to give the perspective of the policy and the administration, and then the prosecutor has that legal decision. Yeah.
So this internal review is going to be to look at how the policies were followed. But I have sat in recent city commission meetings where you're talking about reviewing if those policies should change. Has that conversation grown legs at all?
Yeah. So at the last commission meeting, at the committee of a whole, gosh, everybody's changed. Interim Police Chief Joe Trigg presented a review of the 12 officer-involved shootings that have occurred since 2022. It was a bit of, here's the slide, here's what happens, here's the disposition. I think what community was asking for is, again, it is hard to watch these things play out. It is hard to watch them in our backyard or happen in our community. Why is it happening? I feel it's happening here versus other parts of community. And so, I think that was a collective response, I would say, for all of commission to do that review. He did that, I will say, each time over, again, been on commission since this time. It's not that each one of those is always looked at. And again, I don't know how long ago it was, but we haven't always had MSP or Michigan State Police to be the independent review body, but they are, and they have been, at least during my time on commission. And so in a number of those scenarios, there was, a review, I would say, I can't remember each of the specific details, but would outline if, say there was a shots fired upon an officer initially, and that was the case in some of them. Some of them were cases where we knew there were other mental health considerations going on. But I think, for the city, and at least for myself, I would say, when we can do things and we can do them quickly and we can do them following our policy, we should do them. So I'm glad that we did that. And yes, I think the biggest question right now, there's been questions about our civilian appeals board. There's questions about the canine policy. There's questions about the pursuit policy. I would say probably the next one we'll see is the discussion around canine use. And actually back in 21 and 22, we were having a lot of conversations around, if anybody remembers this, equestrian use or horses use. This was sort of post the May 30th civil unrest that happened in the city of Grand Rapids, where there are a lot of historical contexts about use of animals, dogs and horses as it relates to, Black and brown communities and use of force. And so I look forward to that discussion. I am not a expert in use of force or excessive use of force, but my job is to listen to community, ask questions, listen to review, and then determine what our next step forward. So I would say yes, I would say that there is, probably unanimous support to do that. And I would say also on behalf of our city manager. Sorry, couldn't think of the name for a second.
Mr. Washington.
Yes, Mr. Washington.
So can you explain that process to me briefly then? If the city commission wants to change a policy within one of the city departments, this case GRPD, how does that actually happen? Yeah,
so typically what would happen is, many things are typically coming outside of either, say, our Public Safety Committee, which is a standing committee that I serve on and the mayor does, as well as Commissioner Kilgore. A policy change could also come from, say, a policy that was violated and say perhaps was identified. So probably the most known course of that was back in 2018. I was not yet on commission, but where Mr. Gilmore Ramos Gomez was detained, was arrested, and immigration officials were called. And so that resulted in the creation of the Foreign Nationals policy that we have that said, under the course of, reporting a crime, calling 911, arresting an individual, we are not going to engage in immigration enforcement, right? And that was even outside of, policy. And I won't talk too much about that. It's well documented. There's a great documentary about it. So it could happen in, I would say, one of those two ways, is coming out of a committee and then going and having some direction to say, hey, there's enough support here. It's not just like Commissioner Isasi or the mayor, but a majority of commissioners are saying we would like this to be reviewed, we'd like this to be understood. and or it could be coming out of, say, a violation of policy. And then that creates a new policy to hopefully be considered.
And is that then the city manager that makes that final call on the policy?
The city manager, if there was that request, so right now, again, with this K-9 policy, is take it under review, to ask questions about what has been the oversight, what has been uses, try to have an understanding of how many people had this interaction, what kind of injuries have been sustained, what does that look like? I know, so a lot of times I think in a legal perspective, you would kind of look at like, is something like pervasive and is it severe? And so, I know that for me was one of the questions when you have somebody coming to commission and saying, I had this injury happen to me. I've been bit by a dog, my own dog. It's a very different dynamic, but just that alone, that is a very traumatic thing. And so then you say, okay, what else should I be asking during this time? And yes, the city manager would be leading that because again, the city manager has responsibility and oversight of the police department. We have our responsibility and oversight over the city manager. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that explained it a lot.
I know there's a lot of questions about this, and I think, I think there's always, I would say it's not that we can't talk about it, it's just like what are the right parameters and then determining, where is my decision point in this. So.
Yeah, and I don't know, I personally don't feel super confident in who decides what and then it goes where to where. So no, that was really helpful.
Yeah, and I would say it's always important to continue to have people in our neighborhoods, our neighborhood associations who come to commission. What I would say is, again, in the 6.5 years of doing this, most things are not going to change overnight. There is typically in a public setting, in a city, again, there's employees that have due process, they have rights, they have employment considerations, we have public infrastructure pieces, we have to look at risk. So we would weigh all those things out. And so I think that's probably what I hear is the biggest frustration from my constituent is like, why can't something happen right now? And so I just want to name that and say, like, I hear that. And there's, that is an expectation that I often cannot meet. Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, it's time for us to take a break.
Okay.
But when we come back, we'll be answering questions from viewers like you. To take part in the conversation, send in a question to cityconnection@grcmc.org or submit a question through the Rapidian's Instagram story @TheRapidian. Welcome back to City Connection. It's April 6, 2026, and we're joined by Commissioner Melinda Isasi. During this part of the show, we'll be taking questions from viewers, starting with some questions from Reddit.
Sure.
This question asks, and I believe it has a few parts. Maybe not. Yes, it does. Oh, you said the FLAC safety cameras are still grandfathered in.
Yes.
Would you like to explain how that's possible after reading Admin 1503 with transparency? I don't know what that is. Where's, and then here's the other, well, I'll talk about it afterward. Where's the public hearing? Where's the protocols? Where's the city council vote for approval? Is there no accountability when the city doesn't follow its own policies?
Sure, happy to answer this question. Again, this is really, I would say, the answer that I would have. So when we talk about FLAC cameras, it's kind of like Kleenex and tissue, right? So FLAC cameras are as a branded name of LPRs or license plate readers. So just want to put that out there into the sphere of the conversation that we're having. We talk about a lot of acronyms. This is that would be the surveillance policy that they're mentioning. And so I believe it was actually at one of the Mayor's Mondays conversations because somebody said, we have this surveillance policy. Like, how do we use these and not report on it? It is because they are grandfathered. And so that's what I was trying to and maybe it wasn't clear. And so sometimes I have to remember I'm talking for myself who has the context of, being part of commission and coming to meetings and then being a part of commission for the last number of years. And so flock cameras or license plate readers began to be used in 2013. This was prior to the policy that was describing both the oversight, the surveillance use policy, and the GRPD policy around the use of these license plate readers. So that's why they were grandfathered in. I can't give the answer of why that was decided at the time when the policy was created. The surveillance policy was created in 2015, and then we updated in 2022. Policies like that are often, and the use of technology, surveillance technology, are often part of negotiations as it relates to our police department contracts as well. I will also say that. And so we are not violating it because it is grandfathered. And so I think that's really the answer. In the past, I have said, what would it look like to bring these flat cameras or these license plate readers into the fold of our surveillance policy? I think initially they were also used by our mobile GR team, and then they suspended the use of them after some time. And so, my thought is technology has changed over the years, right? The phone that is in my pocket is different than the phone that I got in 1998, right? And so how could we recognize that and put some oversight? So that's something I would like to see. I think the reality is in the world of public safety, there's a number of things that we want to see. We just talked about canine policy. We've talked about foot pursuit. We've talked about a number of other things. And so just to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of things to tackle in this space. And so, but it is something that I would like to. I would say, I've generally tried to do research on flat cameras. There's been some other good reporting from folks like Michigan Public Radio and others that are really trying to disseminate this. I think we're living in this age of AI and technology, and what are these things doing? I think in other communities they were used for facial recognition. That is not the case. So that's really to answer the question. So yes, they're grandfathered. So no, we're not violating the policy. Could we perhaps look at bringing them under the surveillance policy? I would be open to a conversation for that. Secondly, because of all the changes that we talked about earlier with the federal government, and there was a case that came to us through the OPA office, which said, you, GRPD, City of Grand Rapids, are misusing flat cameras, and we believe you are looking at individuals' immigration status. That was not required to go through the surveillance policy. It was not required to have a review, but there was so much happening on social media. I was getting lots of questions. I was not understanding how these things played into it. And so on that bequest of a number of us to say, hey, this is technology that we don't quite understand, could a review be done? And so that was done, and then it was presented, the findings of that were presented when Brandon Davis did his surveillance update. I think that was in February. So anybody could go back and look and to see that. One of the things that the GRPD has also done, and this didn't need a legislative view. Again, a lot of times it's better for the department to make the policy change. But because there had been such an outcry of, hey, we have this foreign nationals policy, how are you guys following it? We do have a filter on our flat cameras to not allow for immigration-related searches to be done. We do have some federal agencies who have access to our flat cameras. ICE is not one of them. And I was going to say one other thing about that, and I can't remember what I wanted to say. But those are two things that I wanted to share that has been documented in some of our communications around flat cameras or license plate readers. So, and I think, I have been seeing and feeling, and many of us have been sitting at home and seeing and feeling what's happening around the country related to immigration. So this is an oversight thing that we have added. Again, it wasn't required. I'm glad we did it, and hopefully we'll have future conversations. Technology is, like I said, it's changed, and so very open to listening and hearing how that could be reviewed. But that's not just a decision that Commissioner Melinda Sassi makes. I have to make that with my colleagues and with the department and with the
that whole policy process we just talked about.
Absolutely.
Changing policies. Another question from Reddit. Is there an opportunity to use city tax dollars or funding to support the community associations that have lost federal funding?
Sure.
Oh, maybe like Easttown.
Yes. Yep. So Easttown, and I brought this up at the commission meeting, committee of the whole last week, because we were talking through, I don't remember what we were talking through, but we were talking through the neighborhood investment plan and sort of what was the plan for future, but knowing that Easttown had been, it'll be at the end of June, so at the end of the fiscal year is when the funding will end.
And that ended because?
So those community development block grants, and that's the general term, but justice, JAG dollars, what they call them, it happens because there was a review of the median area and income for different communities and where those dollars would go. So income, and it's really income and looking at that household piece has increased. And so we are required to do a report, census data, this is what this looks like, and so we no longer met the threshold in the Easttown area. I would say there's other neighborhoods, I'm not gonna call them out, that know that they're sort of in that same boat, and we could probably all sit here and guess where they might be, because Grand Rapids has changed. Some may call it gentrification, some may call it just, I'm being pushed out of my neighborhood. And so those things that have been in place to help that revitalization are no longer there. We're gonna go into the budget season here at the end of April into May. We have gotten a request from Easttown. They, like many other neighborhood associations, do really valuable work. And I am happy to say in this neighborhood investment plan that we just reviewed with community development, there was a across the board increase to the neighborhood association. So we were able to do that with the dollars and just doing some prioritization. But I would say that will be a discussion for the budgetary process. And you mentioned the neighborhood match fund, and there were actually 2 neighborhood associations who actually did receive money. Fulton Heights Neighborhood Association, and then I believe the Creston Neighborhood Association. And if I forgot anybody else, I'm sorry. But those 2 are in my ward to support some of their activities. And Fulton Heights is not what we would call a city-funded neighborhood association, again, because of those requirements around income. And then, excuse me, I'm sorry. And then Creston is, but they were looking for additional support. So those are also areas that would be available. And that timeline, I believe, opens June 1 and closes on June 30th, and those are for projects starting in September.
Great.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can get through this question before we go to a break, so
okay.
We'll come back to it.
We'll take another break.
Yeah, we'll take another break. When we return, we'll be taking more questions from the public.
Thanks.
Welcome back to City Connection. We're joined here by Commissioner Melinda Sassi, taking questions from the public.
Okay.
Another question came to us from Reddit. As a way to show a genuine interest for public safety, do you have plans for educating the community and school students on how to interact safely with law enforcement?
Absolutely. So Grand Rapids has been engaged in a series of Know Your Rights campaigns for a number of years. This used to be a series of trainings really focused on what are your constitutional rights, like your 4th Amendment, your 5th Amendment, 6th Amendment, so, and then the 14th Amendment, really looking at all those to say what are your rights when you are engaging with law enforcement. And so we have done, I think, 12 over the last, or actually 12 since like July of 2025. There's actually 2 that are happening this week. One is happening at the library, the downtown library, I think on the 8th, and another one is happening on the 10th. I think the one on the 8th has a specific focus as well as related to interactions with immigration and customs enforcement. And Friday, I believe, is being hosted by the Urban League. So that may be one they're hosting and then like inviting, but I think the one on the 8th is open to the public. So yes, that is something that we're doing. This used to be something that was led by other community groups as well. And so for us is like we have the content, but we're really relying on different organizations to say, we want to host it here or we're going to host it here. I'd like to host it in another language. And so we've done it in not only English, but in Spanish, a number of African dialects that have been presented as like this is a priority for community. So that's something that we'll continue to do and something that we'll continue to share out. So yes.
Cool. Yeah, I know we had a Rapidian reporter do an article about the Know Your Rights trainings, and I do. I don't know if there was a list of dates at that time, but I think a lot of it is by appointment.
Yes, there's some appointments. I do in preparation for the questions from Reddit, because my husband tracks Reddit for me.
Great.
This is what is going to be asked of you. And so I reached out to Brandon Davis. So we have a list of them, and even I think we can certainly share that out, because again, that one at the library would be open. So
cool.
Yeah.
Great. Question from Shelley. I'm curious about the construction timeline for the Canal Park area.
Yeah. So Canal Park, we're going to end up, this was like last fall, we had the groundbreaking for, it's going to be a new eco-friendly playground, also going to be recognizing the indigenous people to the Grand River and to West Michigan. And also just frustrating for people because they're like, wait, I want to be able to use this, especially as, we're getting into this nicer season. And so I believe the last time I heard would be sometime in the fall, I believe. I don't think it's going to be open for the summer season. But I know that there is a lot of effort and activity going on. And one of the things that we do on these construction projects is always try to understand is like, can we open parts of it? You know, if some of it is ready, how do we open that up? This is a very, long linear park in the Second Ward on Monroe. And so that's something that we'll continue to ask. I don't have the specific date, but I can work to hopefully find that out and could share it out. But
Is this the park that's by like Linear?
yeah, by
Okay.
linear,
Okay.
city built. Yeah, right in that stretch, Field and Fire. And so that is the stretch that I drive from Creston Heights downtown to my city office, and that's my route. And so I see that. It's where those attack birds, if you've seen, I can't remember what, they're like red and black, the attack birds that they, have the notices. They're known to be in that space too. But, certainly that's a consideration. This is the balance and the push and pull we often have is we want to have that new construction. We want to have that investment. This is investment that we certainly have been looking forward to. And also, we know construction has a toll on area businesses and neighbors. And, sometimes I'm like, how did I not know this street was going to be closed as I, maneuver over to some other streets. And so, but that is something that our Parks Department is definitely working on of, maybe it's something that's not all the way completed, but how do we open things in phases? So that certainly has been a focus. But in the meantime, there's a lot of other places to go and visit. Riverside Park is not too far, Huff Park. Go check out the new MLK Lodge. You mentioned some of the camps, but there's also going to be, we're going to do our outdoor recreation classes that happen too in the summer. So people can really make most of Grand Rapids a place to work out and have fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to check out MLK.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Another question from Ashley. When will we know who's running for city commissioner spots?
Yes, so the filing deadline is on Tuesday, April 22nd. So I mentioned the day before we'll interview the final candidates for the first ward opening that will run until the end of the calendar year. So right now, actually, if you go to the Kent County website and you go to the election center, you can click on November elections of 2026. If you click there, you can see a whole listing. It's essentially a PDF that shows, and it's not just Grand Rapids, but a variety of offices in the county. And you can go on there and see who's already filed. And I think there's at least one person who's already filed for the first ward seat and one person who's already filed for comptroller. So I, as a, certified West Wing, City of Grand Rapids politics head, often click on that at least once a week to see what have I missed, to see who's filed.
Cool.
Yeah.
And the Rapidian will be covering all local elections coming up too. So you'll know who's running if you're on the Rapidian.
Yes, the Rapidian. And support the Rapidian.
Thanks.
Unsolicited.
Question from Darnell. How do we get a larger public transportation in Grand Rapids? I would like to take the bus to work, but despite living a 15-minute drive to downtown, it takes me an hour and a half to get there on the bus. I can't justify adding 2.5 hours to my workday to save a couple bucks on gas, even with current rising prices.
Sure. Yeah, that dollar, that $4.19 hit me hard a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And my home recently in the last year went to a one-car household, and so we've been trying to make that work. My husband is an active e-bike rider. Mayor LeGrand is very happy about that. He's trying to get me on there. But I would say, the Rapid is a multi-jurisdictional 6 regional communities that pay into a system to provide this regional services across the community. The Dash is something, and Allison talked about that at the top, where we were facing almost a 30% increase of what that would be, and how do we streamline it? And so in some ways, we're going to hopefully increase services, even if you're going to reduce what some of the route looks like. So I would say a lot of this is, getting other surrounding communities to say, I want to opt in, because just because they're in the community, in this regional community, they don't have to opt in. So they have that decision. And so it's really up to communities to say, and that's what we saw here in Grand Rapids and Kent County as a whole, is community members saying, like, I support this transit millage. And so I think about people like Dave Bolkowski, from Disability Advocates of Kent County, who's really talked about public transportation as a whole. This is something that the mayor is very passionate about. Some of the things that we've added have been things like micromobility, the scooters and the bikes, and we've had ongoing conversations as we go through our mid-year review about safety features as it relates to that. That's been something really important to Commissioner Purdue. But then we also have the electric cars that residents can sign up. You have to go through a process, but then you can utilize an electric car for a certain number of hours. I can't remember what the total is, but it's pretty accessible, and it's in all parts of the city and in every 3 wards. And so that's something on my list that I'm like, you know what? If we have the city service, I need to understand how it's being used.
Try it out.
So try it out.
Yeah, I signed up for it. I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
But I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Can we make that a segment? We can talk to Ted about that.
Yeah. Well, next show will be in one of the dark cars. One question from Tara. Are all 3 pools opening this summer? I got my kids the free pass last year, and I'm hoping to do this again this summer.
Yes, they will be open. I think last year Briggs had some, or maybe it was Richmond, had some towards the end of the season.
Dog
there
issues?
It was like dog hair, but also so the pump was compromised, I think, and it was so late in the season, by the time they could get the pump, they were not able to do it. So yes.
I'm thinking dog days aren't coming back.
I don't think they're going to do dog days. I know I have some very upset constituents about the dog days. But yes, those will be available. We also have splash pads, and so those are free too. Those are free, and so to be able to look at those. So I took my niece and nephew, they live near Garfield Park, and so they got to go. I used to go swimming at Garfield Park. There was a pool back in the day, and now there's a splash pad. And so, a lot of options in our community, and unfortunately we've been having some, very changing climate happening in our world, and I imagine that will continue this year. So
yeah, sometimes Fulton Street is a pool. So every once in a while, you can find a new pool in Grand Rapids. I think you can answer this one quickly. Does Ward 2 include Elger Heights?
I read this before, Allison, and I regret to inform the listener that Elger Heights is not in the 2nd Ward, and Elger Heights is an amazing neighborhood in the 3rd Ward. But remember, there's a little cutout in the 1st and 3rd Ward. So there are some people who live in Elger Heights, like they're sort of on that cusp of Elger Heights and Garfield Park. I think of Union Street. I have a couple of actually family and friends who live on Union, and people always think they live in the 3rd Ward, but they're actually in the 1st Ward. But I grew up in Elger Heights, and I love Elger Heights. There's amazing businesses there, like, Ken's and Old Goat and
Last
Making
Mile?
Time and Less. SIP.
SIP, you're right.
Yep, SIP is in Elger Heights. So check out Elger Heights.
Great. And we have one more question.
Okay.
From Linda. I just moved to GR and came from a neighborhood where we had a block party every year. Talking to my neighbors, it sounds like we don't have one, but lots of people were interested. We also figured out that none of us knew what that would even look like. Does the city have resources to help us know what permits we need or things we need to know to do this?
This is a great, I think the name was Linda. Welcome.
Linda.
Welcome to Grand Rapids. Yes, so we do. Actually, the Parks Department can assist with that. And we have a new website if people haven't checked it out. It's easier to navigate, and there is actually a section where you can go in the Parks Department, how do you do a block party? And it's actually a step-by-step guide. I only know this because last year I had this question asked of me. So even Linda, if you wanted to reach out to my office, to my email, which is on City of Grand Rapids website, I'm happy to put you in touch with the right people. And then we have some neighborhoods that have had some long-standing block parties. And so I know they're always available to help neighbors who want to start that own tradition themselves.
Yeah, I don't know what neighborhood you're in, but neighborhood association's probably a good place to start.
They can help too,
hopefully you're in my neighborhood. We don't have a block party, and I would love one. So
lots of good things. Yeah,
great. We have a few more minutes if you want to take the last 2 minutes to highlight something from the last month in the 2nd Ward.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to share something I shared a couple of months ago, but Auburn Hills, which is a neighborhood in the 2nd Ward, was recently, in this last year, placed on the National Register of Historic Places. This was really exciting because Auburn Hills is a neighborhood that was started by, I believe, 6 different Black families here in Grand Rapids. The city of Grand Rapids was selling this parcel. This is up by Creston Heights, so a little past, if you're gonna be heading down Fuller past Leonard, that's where the Auburn Hills neighborhood is to the east. And so I learned a lot about Auburn Hills from friends like Mary Alice Williams and just others who had been in the city for a long time. Ellen James, who's a resident there and a longtime second warder. And so the city was selling this piece of property. And then when they found out who was going to buy it at the time, they said, no, we're not going to sell to these Black families. And then they fought, and then they were able to purchase the property. I don't remember what the property price was, but really to be able to have that designation. And that history is only from 1950s, 1960s, so it wasn't that long ago. So I just want to highlight that as, we've always seen strong neighborhoods in our community, and I think, with these changing elements of community block grants and changing neighborhoods and incomes, that is something that is certainly like on the minds of myself and my other colleagues. So looking for other ways that we can support, asking people in neighborhoods to continue to support what their neighborhood association is doing. And they're oftentimes on a shoestring budget doing things. I love my Creston Neighborhood Association. They do great things. We have a farmer's market now that's been happening for a couple of years, just so seeing how you can plug in. And maybe it's not going to be as programmed as something initially, but we've seen things like plan exchanges or seed exchanges or these buy nothing groups that just wanted to highlight Auburn Hills and just remind people about the importance of our neighborhoods and caring for one another, especially during these times.
Great. Yeah, and there is a lot of great history with Auburn Hills. You just touched into it a little bit, but GRMI, which is a local film incubator, has been doing a lot of storytelling work with some of the original families from that. So check that out while you're at it. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you to our guests for coming in and sharing your insight with all of us. And thank you to all of you at home for tuning in and sending in your questions. Don't forget, you can always watch rebroadcasts throughout April on cable GRTV's Channel 25 or the GRTV YouTube page. See you next month, Grand Rapids.